My name is Justin Barksdale. I am a technical marketing engineer at Cisco, and I focus in the cloud and compute BE. We own Intersight, and really what I'm going to talk to you today is how we're leveraging Intersight to bring the power of infrastructure as code on-prem through our partnership with HashiCorp. So just real quick, I'm going to go through a journey, a map, sort of what we see with customers, how they are adopting infrastructure as code, and how they're adopting really like the cloud journey overall. Go through Intersight Terraform services. So this is our partnership with HashiCorp. I'm going to give you a high level of how we're integrating together. And then I'm going to go through a demo of Intersight services for Terraform and Intersight Kubernetes services. So two products that we recently released, one with partnership with HashiCorp and one the evolution of our Cisco container platform, which you may have not heard of before. But if you haven't, we'll see it at the end of the demo. All right, so kind of the journey that we see for infrastructure as code. A lot of our customers spent the last few years moving to public clouds, and they didn't really, or they're not realizing some of the benefits that they thought of. So things like security are being more concerned. It's not as cost effective as they thought. It's also not reaching the operational benefits that they maybe were perceiving it would have. And so they're looking for ways to potentially bring some of those workloads back on premises. Now, the developers, the DevOps groups are saying, hold on a second, we've done a lot of tooling for cloud. We've made our namesake doing this. We want to be able to leverage those same tool sets back on premises. And the IT ops side of the house is saying, but wait, we have already our own concerns. We've got security. We already have our orchestration tools. We already have our management concerns that we need to worry about. How are we going to marry these two together? And so fundamentally, they need to kind of solve this as an organization. They need to look at it from both the IT ops and the DevOps side as we try and leverage infrastructure as code with our on-premises infrastructure. And that's where Cisco can come together. So we've started developing with Intersight how we can bridge the gap and really make these two strategies become as one. So I want to kind of look at it from another angle. What are the old adage, pets versus cattle, and how these two operation models, DevOps and IT ops, view these. From an IT ops perspective, it's more mutable infrastructure. It's networking, it's servers. They tend to deploy them and run them for very long periods of time, weeks, years, in many cases. From the cloud operations or IT ops side of the house, they're used to immutable infrastructure, more like our cattle, where we're used to destroying them. We develop, configure, and deploy, and we do it in days, minutes, hours in many cases. But how are they managed overall? So from a mutable infrastructure, it is deploying that endpoint, that virtual machine, that bare metal server, that network, that security component, and then just providing updates and patches to that component throughout the life. So again, days, weeks, months, years. From a DevOps perspective, it's more of this continuous integration, continuous delivery cycle. So we develop, we configure, we deploy, we do it in minutes, we do it many times a day. And so how do we ultimately look at that from infrastructure as code? Well, that's what they've been doing. They've been defining their infrastructure in a public cloud as a specific line of text or many lines of text, and they're able to deploy it over and over and over and over and over again very quickly. How can we bring these two together? Well, entering Intersight service for Terraform. So Intersight, for those that don't know, is our cloud operations platform. It's been around for several years now. We focus really mainly on managing on-premises infrastructure, things like UCS compute. It's evolving to manage other components within Cisco, hyperflexes, and other components as well. But we're looking at it to spread it out to the edge, to a data center, to your colo facility, and ultimately public clouds. Likewise, we're looking to leverage it to manage not just traditional workloads, things like virtual machines or databases, but also manage hybrid and cloud native workloads, things that are leveraging containers or serverless technologies. And then wrapping it up with security and governance and providing Cisco's tax support. Now, over the last 12 months, we've had a really big focus on how can we make that platform more DevOps friendly. And that's really where our partnership with HashiCorp and our Intersight service for HashiCorp Terraform comes into play. We chose HashiCorp and we chose this technology because we're really in the same realm of what we're trying to do with our services. We provide single sign-on services, it's consolidated APIs, and ultimately our goal is to provide a consistent infrastructure as code experience. Again, whether you're leveraging in the public cloud or you're leveraging on-premises infrastructure. But what are the challenges with Terraform open source? So a lot of our customers are out there leveraging Terraform open source. So they're taking Terraform, they're downloading the bits, they're making their own workflows and doing their own things, but they're doing it on an isolated laptop or two. And when you start to expand out in an enterprise, you run into these problems. How do I share the state? Terraform has state files. How do I share secrets, passwords, and things that are important to us? How do I make an API available so that those customers can leverage APIs rather than just leveraging Terraform itself? And then ultimately, how do I get support? Something goes wrong 2 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. Who am I calling with that? And Terraform open source presents these challenges. It's a very powerful tool. I'm going to show it in a little while, but it presents challenges when you start to go to scale, when you start to add more users, when you start to leverage it in an enterprise capacity. Now, Terraform Cloud for Business is the evolution of that. And Terraform Cloud for Business is essentially leveraging cloud-native technologies as a service, so software as a service through HashiCorp, providing team governance, providing shared secrets. It basically takes the best of Terraform, puts it in a public cloud and as a SaaS service, and allows customers to leverage it to deploy infrastructure as code wherever they need to deploy it. But there's some inherent challenges with that as well. Ultimately, if you have a SaaS service and you want to deploy infrastructure on premise, then how do you talk to that on-premises infrastructure? Well, there's a couple of options. One is we can open up firewall rules to every management IP address that we need to access and let Terraform Cloud access it that way. That's not really scalable and it's not really practical, but it is a solution and not something I would hope anybody would look at. The other option is that Terraform Cloud for Business provides this Terraform Cloud Agent. Now, the Terraform Cloud Agent is a Docker container that runs on infrastructure on premises. You're responsible for managing that infrastructure. So whether that's a virtual machine or a bare metal server, you're required to maintain the operating system, patches, security fixes, and things of that nature. You're also responsible for providing firewall rules that need to talk to it. So you're required to say, I need this virtual machine or this container to talk to XYZ infrastructure to be able to provision. You're responsible for providing those rules. So it presents challenges at scale. One agent is easy. One agent makes not that much of a challenge, but when you start to scale multiple agents in a single data center, you can see how that gets amplified. And then when you go to other data centers and you have multiple locations, now we really run into a scale problem of how do we manage that underlying infrastructure that's actually running our Terraform Cloud Agent. So this is really where our partnership comes to play. We integrated with Terraform Cloud for Business with Intersight, and we take the constructs of that agent and we put it on top of our Intersight Assist appliance. Now, Intersight Assist, for those that don't know, is an appliance that runs in your data center that's already talking to infrastructure that you own. For example, it could be talking to VMware. It could be talking to Pure Storage, NetApp, Hitachi. There's a whole range of infrastructure that it's already talking to and already providing metrics and information back to Intersight. So we just decided, why don't we put the Terraform agent on top of there? We're already managing this appliance, Cisco means. Intersight can provide updates, and it does provide security patches and vulnerability fixes and those things throughout the life cycle of that appliance. So we'll just put the agent on top of there. So now we have integration with Terraform Cloud for Business through single sign-on, and we have the ability to orchestrate the agent or agents as you scale on top of the Intersight Assist appliance, which really brings a new realm of security capabilities to customers in infrastructure as code on premises. So going back to our mutability farms and taking this from that example, again, the mutable infrastructure is really what IT ops cares about. The immutable infrastructure is what DevOps cares about. And so when we start talking about how these things play together, DevOps worry about things like the cattle. They're just destroying them, deploying them as they need to. These things are deployed in minutes, hours, days, as I said before. Whereas you have this mutable infrastructure, which are things like your farm equipment, your windmills, your silos, your horses. These are things that you're not necessarily comfortable with deploying on demand or destroying on demand. You're more comfortable with they're going to be long-lived. I need to baby them. I need to coddle them because I'm going to use them more frequently and they're often more expensive. So these are the things like your bare metal servers, your networking, your security. These things are what we're trying to merge together with Intersight and Terraform Cloud for Business to be able to provide operators their choice of what they want to do. Do you want to be able to manage mutable infrastructure? Intersight is your toy. You want to be able to manage immutable infrastructure? Intersight is your tool. So that's our goal ultimately, is to be able to provide this multi-platform support model across all of our personas, DevOps and IT Ops. All right. So I do have a demo to go through. Again, I'm going to go through Intersight Service for Terraform, as well as Kubernetes, IKS, Intersight Kubernetes Services. I want to give you a high level of what the demo architecture looks like. So I have a GitHub repo that I own or have. It's already tied in with Terraform Cloud, and it's already registered with a workspace in Terraform Cloud. So for those that don't know, workspaces are essentially like the boundaries that a state file would live in, maybe security policies, things like that would live in that boundary. So I already have GitHub integrated with a workspace in Terraform Cloud. What we're going to do is tie that Terraform Cloud with Intersight, deploy the Terraform Cloud agent, and then deploy some infrastructure using that. And commonly, I looked at this from a use case of I need to deploy ACI, and I want to do it in a GitOps model. So we're going to push a configuration of ACI into GitHub. Terraform Cloud will pick it up, and through the agent, deploy that to the on-premise infrastructure that I have with ACI. After that, we're going to deploy IKS, so Intersight Kubernetes Services, just using Terraform. Got some code written. We're going to deploy the cluster. Intersight's going to build out that cluster for us, so the workers, masters, all of the things that need to be production-ready Kubernetes. And then I'm just going to throw an application on top of it just to show you that it works. All right. Okay, so this is the Intersight dashboard. For those who maybe have not seen it, this is the homepage that you launch into and just gives you an overview of the health of your on-premises infrastructure. We also have tie-ins with cloud infrastructure as well through Workload Optimizer, being able to see how our workloads are actually functioning. So the first step that I need to do, as I said, was to claim a target. A target in Intersight is what we would call an object that's external that we wanted to integrate with. In this case, that target is Terraform Cloud. So just through the wizard here, I'm going to go through, select Terraform Cloud, start through and fill out some information. I need to give it a name. So we're just going to call it Terraform Cloud. And then I need to provide username and token information that I get directly from Terraform Cloud for Business. So in my case, my user account. And I'm going to switch over to Terraform Cloud for Business and just grab that user token. So user settings and then tokens. I'll create a new one. So that, this is brand new integration, copy that token to my clipboard and go back into Intersight and tie the two together. The last point is I need to set a default Terraform Cloud organization. So in Terraform, we have these concept of organizations. This is, again, where you can provide some role RBAC and other security roles and things of that nature. I have several organizations. The one that we're going to use is the Cisco IST Tiger team. So I'm just going to grab the name and put it into my organization form. Once this is complete, the APIs in the back end talk together and do the single sign-on, do the integration points with Terraform Cloud for Business and Intersight. And you'll see quickly that this shows up as a target inside of my Intersight dashboard. There's our Terraform Cloud. Now, once that's done, we need to deploy our agents. An agent in Terraform is like a run, a concurrent run. So if I need to deploy multiple components of infrastructure in multiple runs, then I would need to have multiple agents if I want to do it concurrently. In this case, I'm only going to deploy a single agent, but you can see if I had to do multiple agents, it's just as simple, the same process as what I'm going to go through here. Makes it much easier for users to consume. I'm going to go through, add Terraform Cloud agent, and then fill out, again, some information. Now, some of this information is just user-generated. Some of it's pulled over. For example, I'm going to give the agent a name. We're going to call it Tech Field Day. The Intersight Assist, so as I said before, Intersight Assist is a virtual machine, in our case, that runs on-premises, and which allows Intersight to talk into the infrastructure. It's an outbound connection, so it's an outbound port 443 from that virtual machine to the Intersight cloud. So I only have one Intersight Assist, but if I had multiples for multiple data centers, I would select whichever one I wanted to deploy it to. After that, I need to figure out what is the agent pool name that I'm going to use. Now, as I said before, I already had this workspace created, and I already had my this agent pool tied to it, so I just want to grab the same name. But if I didn't have a name already created, if I didn't have an agent pool built out, I would simply just put one here and we would create it for you. In my case, they already had it, so I just needed to grab what it was. Now, lastly, I need to provide what is the infrastructure that I want to manage. Some of that security policy we talked about. In this case, I need to put in my ACI network, the subnet my ACI fabric lives on, and I'm putting in my network for my lab in general, a Kubernetes environment. I'm just doing this. This is so the agent can talk to that infrastructure. Remember, the way that this is deployed is that Terraform Cloud talks to Intersight, Intersight talks to the agent, and the agent deploys the infrastructure. And we're going to see that in just a second. I hit claim, and once I hit claim, the APIs on the back end talk together. And it tells Intersight Assist, okay, you need to go and pull down this container to deploy on top of your Intersight Assist appliance. You see inside of Terraform, when I go back and refresh my agent list, there was no tokens there. Now, when I refresh it, you can see that I have a token that's been created from Intersight for this cloud target for this agent. So the agent's being deployed. This takes a couple of minutes. As I said, the agent has to be pulled down from the internet. We grab the latest version, and this is the agent that's maintained by Terraform Cloud for Business. All right, so now that we have my agent deployed, we can click into Intersight just to show you that it's connected, it's up. We get some more information about it, what organization and things of that nature. But everything's talking together and is working as it should be. The next step is that I want to go into my ACI workspace and just kind of show you around for a second. Underneath my settings, I have my agent pool set up, so that Richfield Lab IST agent pool set up. And this is the pool that we're going to execute whatever code we put inside of there with. So I could do this as remote execution, which means that Terraform Cloud would just execute it for me. So that's cloud to cloud. Local execution means that I'm going to execute it locally on my laptop, but I want to maintain the state file inside of Terraform Cloud. And lastly, again, we're using agent execution because I need Terraform Cloud to talk to my on-premises infrastructure. All right. So I have no runs running currently. I'm going to just deploy a little bit of code. In my Visual Code Editor, I have some resources here defined that are for ACI. Things like a new tenant, a bridge domain, subnets, things that are very common to ACI that I'm just going to deploy and leverage for my Kubernetes environment. So just go through here. I'm going to make a git commit. So I'm going to add the files and then commit the files to Git just so that we see this workflow kick off. And once that commit takes place, I'll go back to the Terraform Cloud for Business and we'll just see. So once the push is done, we can see inside of Terraform Cloud for Business, there's the run. So we just kicked it off a few seconds ago. Detect field day is what I labeled it. And I can click into this run and see, okay, it's starting to do what it needs to do. The plan is queued. It's going to go through a queuing process. It's going to do a plan, Terraform plan, which is just kind of seeing, is everything legit, which is what it's doing there. And inside my ACI fabric, you can see I have some tenants deployed, but I don't have the tenant that I'm deploying here. And the tenant name that I gave it is Tech Field Day. So you don't see Tech Field Day deployed. You can see inside of this plan we're running. So right now, Terraform is initializing the plugins and modules. It's downloading to our agent that's on premises inside of Intersight Assist those plugins and modules that are needed to run our plan. In this case, it's the ACI modules. I'm going to add 6 resources. So again, tenant, bridge domain, endpoint group, those things. We could do cost estimation, which is a nice tool set inside of Terraform Cloud for Business. We can do cost estimation for cloud infrastructure, on-premise infrastructure to a degree. We can also apply some security policies through this if I needed to make sure that things were up to our standards. The next step is it's going to do an apply. Again, I'm creating the tenants, creating everything that needs to be built inside of ACI. There's my tenant Tech Field Day, and it's been deployed. And now if I go back to my ACI fabric, my Tech Field Day tenant is created. I'm just going to dive into it and show around for a second. There's an application profile that was built. There is a network bridge domain and IPs that were deployed for this. And I just reused some common infrastructure, common contracts, and common VRF as an example, common L3 out. So I'm deploying the infrastructure. That's all been completed. The next step is that I want to deploy IKS, Intersight Kubernetes Service. So as I said before, this was done with Terraform Cloud for Business integration. Perhaps now that my infrastructure is deployed, I'm a developer and I just want to deploy a quick Kubernetes cluster. So I have here a module that's been built out for Intersight Kubernetes Service and just providing some common information. What's the name of the cluster? Where are you putting it? What's the port group and things of that nature? Things that are information that you would need. IP addresses, just providing that information in a few lines of code, I can get through and deploy a fully functioning and supported Kubernetes environment. Just going to do initialize this particular environment, and then I'm going to apply it. And the apply will take a little bit of time, but I'll show you what all we're doing. So the apply goes through, and when I flick back to Intersight, you can see that there are 14 objects that were deployed, so 14 resources added right there at the bottom. And when I flip back to Intersight, those 14 resources consist of things like policies and profiles that I would need to deploy my Kubernetes environment. So inside here, my policies were created, my worker sizes, my network information, registry information, anything that I would need to deploy my Kubernetes cluster is put here in policy. And then we build a profile from it that actually defines what the Kubernetes cluster looks like. So diving into profiles, you can see there's my tech field day cluster. It has no status right now. It's being deployed. In the top right-hand corner, you'll see the little circle with the 1. This shows you the workflow tasks that are going through and building that cluster for us. Now, it takes between 6 and 12 minutes. This one took 11 minutes and almost 40 seconds. But Intersight is going through and doing everything that you would need to do to build a production-ready Kubernetes cluster. And this was all provisioned via Terraform. So the next step after this is I just want to grab a simple file for my kube config file. Before that, I'll dive into the cluster itself. So again, the health of the cluster, how many nodes there were, how many node pools we have, just things of that nature that an operator from an IT ops perspective may look at this and say, oh, okay, they've got a Kubernetes cluster and I can see the operations aspect of it. So diving back in my cluster itself, I'm going to download the kube config file. My kube config file is there. So now I'm going to flip back to my code editor. And again, I'm just going to deploy an application. This application has a web front end. It has some other stuff with it, but I'm really just showing it as a fact that, hey, this is a working Kubernetes cluster. This is a working environment. There was really no smoke and mirrors behind the scenes. Just real quick, standard Kubernetes commands, going to apply the file. The application is hipster app, which you probably have seen many times. Deploying several resources again, and then I want to grab the actual service. So inside of my Terraform file for my Kubernetes cluster, I set up how many load balancers I wanted to have. And in this case, I'm just going to grab an external load balancer, the front end external, that IP address. I can grab that, web to that address, and then ultimately I can show you that we have a front end running app. So really, the goal of this was to kind of show you how two operational models, the IT ops and DevOps models, can start to live in harmony through Intersight. I can deploy infrastructure how I'm used to deploying it through Terraform Cloud for Business without having to really worry about security policies and the things that might get us in trouble by opening up firewall rules, leveraging the agent that's on-premises, inside the Intersight Assist. Likewise, I can consume it with just regular Terraform using our Terraform provider for Intersight. So building infrastructure that way if I choose to. And then finally, just the old-fashioned way of leveraging the native the native component APIs. In that case, it was Kubernetes.